The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with nervous energy as alien beings from across the galaxy gathered in emergency session. Admiral Jake Sullivan stood at the center of the circular hall, surrounded by hundreds of representatives from dozens of species, all staring at him with expressions ranging from fear to outright panic. High Counselor HFY, a tall blue-skinned Etherean with 4 arms and glowing silver eyes, slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder, and the chatter died instantly. Jake had never seen the usually calm HFY look so disturbed. His normally steady hands were shaking as he held up a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. "Admiral Sullivan," HFY's voice carried across the silent chamber, "we have received disturbing intelligence from our monitoring stations near human space. Our sensors have detected the construction and mobilization of over 300 warships in Earth orbit and surrounding systems, the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled." Jake frowned and stepped forward. He had been serving as the human liaison to the Galactic Council for 5 years now, and he thought he had seen everything. But the fear in these alien faces was something new. "Counselor, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Earth hasn't mobilized any military fleet. We would have notified the Council immediately of any major military operations as per our agreements." Ripple of what Jake could only describe as terrified whispers spread through the chamber. Commander Lisa Brooke, who had accompanied Jake to this emergency session, leaned close to his ear. "Sir, they're genuinely scared. I've never seen anything like this." Dr. Alex Carter, the human xenobiologist who had been studying alien cultures for the past decade, watched the proceedings with growing confusion. He had spent years building relationships with many of these species, and their current behavior was completely out of character. The normally aggressive Krillians were huddled together in their section, while the proud Vorthan delegation had actually moved their seats further away from the human representatives. "Admiral," a voice called from the upper tiers. It belonged to General Zara Veltar, a Krillian military commander whom Jake had worked with during the border disputes 3 years ago. "Perhaps you are not aware of what your people are planning. Perhaps your own government has not informed you." Jake felt his confusion growing. "General Veltar, with respect, Earth's government doesn't operate that way. Any major military operation would involve the Defense Force command structure. I would know about it. Would you?" HFY's 4 arms gestured to the holographic display, which now showed detailed scans of the ships being built around Earth. These vessels carry the signatures of human military technology, but they are unlike anything we have seen before. "They are massive, Admiral. Each one appears to be the size of our largest battle cruisers." Lisa Brooks studied the display carefully. She was one of Earth's most experienced Defense Force officers, having served in conflicts from the Mars Rebellion to the Europa mining wars. The ships in the display did look like human designs, but something was different about them. "Those aren't military vessels," she said suddenly. "At least, not traditional ones. Look at the configuration of the hull." "Sections?" But her words were lost in the growing commotion. A representative from the Keth Collective, a species that resembled large insects with crystalline wings, clicked rapidly in their native language before switching to Galactic Standard. "The humans are preparing for war. This is exactly what happened before the Centauri campaign." The mention of Centauri sent another wave of fear through the chamber. Jake remembered that campaign well. It had been humanity's first major conflict after joining the galactic community, and it had not gone as anyone expected. The hegemony had attacked human colonies, expecting easy victories against a young species. Instead, they had encountered something they were completely unprepared for. "The miracle of Kepler Station," whispered Dr. Nexus, the elderly chronicler who maintained the galactic historical records. His 6 tentacles writhed nervously as he spoke. 200 humans held off 10,000 hegemony troops for 3 weeks. They turned mining equipment into weapons. They fought with broken bones and internal bleeding. Some continued fighting even after losing limbs. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had been there at Kepler Station, though not as a participant in the fighting. He had been part of the relief force that arrived to find the colonists had somehow survived an impossible siege. What had impressed him most was not the violence but the determination. The colonists had been protecting their families, their homes. They had fought because they had no choice. "And the industrial moon of Titan 7?" added another voice. Jake couldn't see who was speaking, but the fear was clear. When the hegemony cut off all supply lines, the humans there built an entire weapons factory from asteroid mining equipment in 6 days. 6 days, they produced enough ammunition to supply a full military campaign. "That's not the full story," Jake tried to interject, but Zethkai raised one of his hands for silence. "Admiral, we appreciate that humans often have explanations for their actions, but the pattern is clear. When humans mobilize for war, entire civilizations fall. The hegemony learned this. The Kreth Dominion learned this. Even the ancient Vorthans, who had been warriors for millennia before humans left their home planet, learned to fear human military capability." Alex Carter stood up from his seat in the observers section. "Counselors, if I may. The examples you're citing are all defensive actions. Humans were attacked first in every case. Defense?" General Valtara's laugh was harsh. "Doctor, your people turned the entire hegemony capital system into a debris field. They chased the hegemony fleet across 12 sectors. That was not defense? That was absolute annihilation?" Jake remembered those days differently. Yes, humanity had pursued the hegemony forces, but only to ensure they couldn't regroup and attack more human colonies. The destruction had been necessary to protect innocent people. But looking around the chamber now, he began to understand how these actions must have appeared to other species. "The point, Admiral," Zethkai continued, "is that when humans prepare for war, the galaxy trembles. And now, according to our intelligence, you are preparing the largest fleet in human history. 300 ships, Admiral. What could require such a massive force?" Jake looked at Lisa and Alex, seeing his own confusion reflected in their faces. 300 ships was indeed a massive undertaking, but he genuinely had no knowledge of any such fleet. Earth's military maintained perhaps 50 active warships at any given time, with another 100 in various stages of construction or maintenance. The idea of building 300 new vessels would require resources and industrial capacity that would be impossible to hide. "Counselor," Jake said carefully, "I need to contact Earth immediately. There may be some misunderstanding." "Here, misunderstanding?" The voice came from the ethereal delegation, beings of pure energy who rarely spoke in council sessions. When they did speak, everyone listened. "Admiral, our sensors do not misunderstand. Your ships are there, they are real, and if the patterns of human history are any guide, some unfortunate species is about to discover why the rest of the galaxy has learned to give humanity a very wide berth." The chamber fell silent again, and Jake felt the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon him. He had always known that humanity had a certain reputation in the galaxy, but he was beginning to realize that reputation was far more fearsome than he had ever imagined. Captain Ryan Matthews had been enjoying a quiet drink at the officers' club on Nexus Prime when his communicator started buzzing with urgent messages. As a veteran of the Centauri campaign and 3 other major conflicts, Ryan thought his fighting days were behind him. Now he found himself being escorted to the Galactic Council chambers where Ambassador Kate Morrison was already waiting with a look of barely controlled panic on her face. "Ryan, thank God you're here," Kate said as she grabbed his arm. "The entire council thinks we're about to launch some massive invasion. They want to hear from someone who was actually there during our previous conflicts." Ryan looked around the chamber and felt the familiar weight of alien fear pressing down on him. He had experienced this before, the way conversations stopped when humans entered a room, the way other species stepped aside in corridors. After 15 years of military service, he had grown used to it, but it never stopped being uncomfortable. General Zara Veltar approached them with careful steps, her reptilian features showing the kind of respect usually reserved for dangerous predators. "Captain Matthews, I have studied your military records extensively," You were at Kepler Station during the siege. I was, Ryan replied simply. He never liked talking about Kepler Station, but he understood why the aliens always brought it up. To them, it represented everything terrifying about human warfare. Tell the council what happened there, Zethkai requested from his position at the center of the chamber. Help them understand what humans are capable of when they decide to. Go to war, Ryan sighed and moved to the speaking platform. The chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien beings focused their attention on him. He could see the fear in their eyes, the way they leaned back slightly as if his words alone might be dangerous. Kepler Station was a mining colony, he began. Families mostly? Miners, engineers, teachers for the children, about 3,000 people total. The hegemony attacked without warning, demanding surrender within 6 hours. A Vorthan representative interrupted, but humans do not surrender. These weren't soldiers, Ryan continued. They were civilians with mining equipment and whatever personal weapons they owned. When the attack began, they had no choice but to fight or watch their children die. Dr. Nexith leaned forward with obvious interest. But how did civilians defeat professional warriors? Ryan thought back to those terrible weeks. They didn't think like soldiers. The hegemony expected standard defensive positions, military tactics. Instead, the colonists turned the entire asteroid into a weapon. They rigged mining charges in the tunnels, used industrial lifters as mobile platforms for heavy weapons, converted or processing plants into ammunition factories. In 3 days, General Veltar added, consulting her notes, they produced more explosive devices than most military units carry in their entire arsenal. They had to, Ryan explained. The hegemony had 10,000 troops in full orbital support. The humans had determination and industrial equipment they knew how to use better than anyone else in the galaxy. Ambassador Kate Morrison stood beside him. But that's the point the Council needs to understand. These were desperate people protecting their families, not conquerors planning an invasion. A chorus of clicking came from the Keth Collective section. Their translator rendered it as the result was the same. 10,000 hegemony soldiers, only 300 survived to retreat. Ryan felt the familiar weight in his chest when he thought about the aftermath. The colonists lost 800 people, mostly in the first wave when they were still figuring out how to fight back. Every single person who died was someone's parent, spouse, or child. Yet humans pursued the retreating hegemony forces across 12 sectors, pointed out a Krillian officer. That was not defense, Captain. Kate Morrison stepped forward. Because we learned they were planning to attack 6 more human colonies. The pursuit wasn't about revenge, it was about preventing more Kepler stations. The Titan 7 incident, Dr. Nexus said quietly. Even more disturbing in some ways, Ryan nodded grimly. Different situation, same principle. The hegemony cut off all supply lines to an industrial moon, thinking they could force a surrender through starvation. They didn't understand that humans had been surviving in hostile environments for centuries before we ever left Earth. 6 days, whispered an ethereal representative. They built a complete weapons manufacturing complex in 6 days using asteroid mining equipment. Because they had children on that moon too, Ryan said. Families who would die if the hegemony invasion succeeded. So they did what humans do. They improvised, they adapted, and they turned whatever they had into whatever they needed. General. Veltar consulted another set of records. The industrial output during those 6 days exceeded anything in recorded galactic history. They produced enough ammunition and weapons to supply a full-sector military campaign. While under siege, added the Keth representative, while hegemony forces were actively bombing the surface. Kate Morrison could see the fear growing in the alien faces around them. But you have to understand, none of this was planned. Humans don't sit around plotting conquests. These were people reacting to immediate threats to their families and communities. Then explain the Vorthan incident, challenged a tall, proud-looking alien that Ryan recognized as a Vorthan commander. Your people destroyed our most advanced battle fleet in 4 hours. Ryan remembered that one too. The Vorthans attacked a human medical ship that was carrying wounded from the Outer Rim conflicts. Non-combatants, including children who had been injured in refugee camps. It was a mistake, the Vorthan admitted. Our targeting systems malfunctioned. But humans didn't know that, Ryan continued. All they saw was their medical ship being destroyed, their doctors and nurses and wounded children being killed. 3 human destroyers happened to be in the area. 3 ships, Dr. Nexith mused, against the Vorthan Empire's first fleet, 47 vessels. The humans didn't calculate odds, General Veltar observed. They simply attacked. Ryan nodded. Because from their perspectives, someone had just murdered a ship full of wounded people and medical staff. The tactical situation didn't matter. The overwhelming enemy numbers didn't matter. Someone had killed their people, and that could not be allowed to stand. But the ferocity, the Vorthan commander said. The absolute refusal to retreat even when facing impossible odds. My people have been warriors for thousands of years, but we had never encountered anything like human battle fury. We call it protective rage, Kate Morrison explained. Humans have always been protective of their communities, but when that protection extends to wounded non-combatants and children, the reaction can be ... extreme. Extreme, repeated an alien voice from the back of the chamber. Captain, humans turned 47 Vorthan warships into debris in 4 hours using 3 destroyers. The mathematical probability of such a victory approaches 0. Ryan looked around the chamber, seeing the fear and confusion in hundreds of alien faces. That's what you don't understand about humans. We don't fight wars to win territory or resources or glory. We fight to protect people we care about. When someone threatens our families, our communities, our wounded, we don't calculate probabilities. We just fight until the threat is gone or we are. And now, Zethkai said quietly, our sensors show humans building the largest fleet in their history. 300 warships, Captain Matthews? If humans fight with such determination to protect what they have, what will they do when they decide to take what they want? The chamber fell silent again, and Ryan suddenly understood the depth of alien fear. To these species, humanity's protective. Instincts look like the behavior of apex predators preparing for the hunt of a lifetime. President Danny Walsh was having breakfast with his family when the emergency communication from the Galactic Council arrived. His wife Linda was helping their youngest daughter with her homework while their teenage son complained about having to clean his room. It was a perfectly normal Thursday morning until the holographic display in their kitchen activated with Admiral Jake Sullivan's worried face appearing above the dining table. Mr. President, we have a situation, Jake said without his usual pleasantries. The entire Galactic Council believes Earth is preparing to launch some kind of massive invasion. They're talking about 300 warships that apparently we've been building in secret. Danny nearly choked on his coffee. 300 warships? Jake, our entire active fleet is maybe 50 ships. Where would we even get the resources to build 300 new vessels? That's what I told them, sir. But they have sensor data showing massive construction activity throughout our solar system. They're genuinely terrified. Linda Walsh looked up from helping their daughter. Terrified of us. That seems a bit extreme. Ma'am, with respect, you haven't heard the stories they tell about human military actions. To them, we're basically the galactic equivalent of nightmare monsters who turn mining equipment into weapons and refuse to retreat even when facing impossible odds. Danny stood up and walked to his study, gesturing for the hologram to follow. Jake, patch me through to General Sam Torres immediately. If there's some kind of massive military buildup happening, Sam would know about it. Within minutes, General Torres appeared on the display alongside Jake Sullivan. The grizzled veteran looked as confused as everyone else. Mr. President, I can confirm we are not building any invasion fleet. Our current shipyard capacity couldn't handle 300 vessels even if we wanted to build them, which we don't. Then what are these aliens seeing? Danny asked. General Torres consulted his tablet. Well, there is Project Horizon, but that's completely civilian. Dr. Nina Ross has been working with the Colonial Development Authority on some kind of exploration initiative. Get her on the line, Danny ordered. And someone explained to me how an exploration project could look like military preparation to alien sensors. Dr. Nina Ross appeared on the display moments later, looking slightly flustered. Mr. President, I was just reviewing our construction schedules. We're building exploration vessels, not warships. The hull configurations are completely different. Dr. Ross, the aliens are seeing 300 military-grade vessels, Jake Sullivan interjected from Nexus Prime. Their sensors are quite sophisticated. Nina frowned and pulled up her own data. 300? Oh no, this is bad. Mr. President, they're seeing our entire expansion fleet for the Andromeda approach mission. The what mission? Danny asked. Project Horizon, sir. We've discovered potentially habitable star systems in the neighboring galaxy approach vector. The Colonial Development Authority approved the largest peaceful expansion in human history. We're building colony ships, research vessels, supply transports, mobile habitats, everything needed to establish sustainable human presence across multiple new star systems. General Torres leaned forward. Dr. Ross, are you telling me you've been building 300 civilian vessels and the aliens think they're warships? That's impossible, Jake Sullivan said from the council chambers. These vessels are showing military-grade hull plating, defensive systems, heavy industrial capacity. Nina nodded enthusiastically. Of course they are. We're going into completely uncharted space, possibly for decades at a time. The ships need to be self-sufficient, capable of defending themselves from unknown threats, and equipped to build entire colonies from raw materials. Each vessel is essentially a mobile city with industrial capabilities. Danny felt a headache coming on. So you're telling me that our peaceful exploration ships look exactly like invasion vessels to alien sensors? Worse than that, sir, Nina admitted. To make them truly self-sufficient, we've equipped them with the most advanced human technology. Adaptive manufacturing systems, automated defense networks, modular construction capabilities. They're probably more sophisticated than anything in our actual military fleet. Captain Luke Patterson, the test pilot who had been working with Dr. Ross's team, joined the conversation. Mr. President, these ships are designed to take a few hundred colonists and turn them into thriving communities on completely unknown worlds. They need to be able to handle any situation from hostile wildlife to environmental disasters to potential contact with unknown species. Luke, General Torres said slowly, describe the defensive capabilities of these exploration vessels. Well, sir, they're equipped with point defense systems for asteroid deflection, mining laser arrays that can double as weapons if needed, automated manufacturing that can produce anything from farming equipment to emergency weapons, and hull plating that can survive impacts from space debris or hostile action. Jake Sullivan's voice carried a note of understanding and horror. Dr. Ross, Captain Patterson, from an outside perspective, you've just described the most advanced invasion fleet ever constructed. Self-sufficient vessels that can establish bases anywhere, manufacture their own weapons and supplies, and defend themselves against any known military force. But we're not invading anyone, Nina protested. We're exploring empty space. The Andromeda approach vector is completely uninhabited according to all our surveys. The aliens don't know that, Danny realized. They see us building 300 incredibly advanced vessels with military-grade capabilities, and they assume we're planning to attack someone. General Torres pulled up tactical displays. Sir, looking at these specifications, these exploration ships actually are more dangerous than our military vessels in many ways. They're designed to survive and thrive in any environment against any threat. No military fleet in galactic history has been this adaptable. Because no military fleet has ever been designed for peaceful exploration of unknown galaxies, Dr. Ross said defensively. We built them to keep families safe while they're establishing new homes millions of light years from Earth. Captain, Patterson nodded. Every system is designed with civilian survival in mind, but that means they're incredibly robust. These ships could probably survive attacks that would destroy traditional warships, and they carry enough industrial capacity to supply themselves indefinitely. Danny sat down heavily in his chair. So we've accidentally built the most terrifying fleet in galactic history while trying to create the most peaceful exploration mission ever attempted. That appears to be the situation, sir, Jake Sullivan. Confirmed. The Galactic Council is currently debating whether to attempt a preemptive strike against Earth or evacuate their border systems. A preemptive strike? Danny stood up quickly. Jake, you need to explain to them that this is all a misunderstanding. I've been trying, sir, but they have detailed sensor data showing massive vessels with military capabilities being built throughout our solar system. From their perspective, the evidence is overwhelming. Dr. Ross looked at her construction schedules. Mr. President, we're launching the first wave of exploration vessels in 6 weeks. 50 ships carrying 10,000 volunteers and their families. To establish colonies in the Kepler 442 region? 10,000 volunteers, General Torres repeated. Sir, the aliens are going to see 50 advanced vessels leaving human space with 10,000 people aboard and assume it's the beginning of the invasion. Danny looked at the faces on his display, seeing his own confusion and worry reflected. Back at him. How do we explain to an entire galaxy that humanity's most advanced fleet ever constructed is actually just a bunch of families looking for new places to build homes and raise their children? That might be harder than it sounds. Sir, Jake Sullivan said quietly, to many species in the galaxy, the idea of spreading across multiple star systems just to build homes and raise families sounds exactly like what a conquering species would say to justify an invasion. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of the misunderstanding they were facing. Chancellor Morden had been leading the Galactic Council for 30 years, and in all that time he had never seen the chamber in such chaos. Representatives from 47 different species were shouting, clicking, buzzing, and making whatever noises their vocal systems could produce to express panic and outrage. The emergency session had been running for 6 hours, and they were no closer to a solution than when they started. Order! Order! Morden slammed his ceremonial staff repeatedly, but the sound was lost in the cacophony. The ancient Ythran had lived through 3 galactic wars and countless diplomatic crises, but nothing had prepared him for this level of fear among the galactic community. Admiral Jake Sullivan stood in the center of the chamber, looking increasingly frustrated as he tried to explain humanity's position. Honorable representatives, I have just received confirmation from Earth's government that these vessels are designed for peaceful exploration, not military conquest. Peaceful? Screeched a Keth representative, her crystalline wings vibrating with agitation. Captain, these ships carry more firepower than our entire home defense fleet. Because they're going into unknown space, Jake replied patiently. They need to be prepared for any situation they might encounter, including hostile wildlife, environmental hazards, or defensive action against pirates or raiders. Dr. Alex Carter, who had been studying the technical specifications transmitted from Earth, looked up from his datapad. Council members, I've reviewed the detailed plans for these exploration vessels. They're essentially mobile cities designed to establish colonies in unexplored regions. Mobile cities that can manufacture weapons, General Valtar interrupted. Doctor, each of these vessels carries industrial capacity equivalent to a major military shipyard. They could produce an entire battle fleet from raw materials. Only if they needed to, Alex explained. The manufacturing systems are designed to build homes, farms, schools, hospitals, whatever the colonists need to establish permanent settlements. A Vorthan commander stood up in his section. Dr. Carter, with respect, we have heard these explanations before. Humans always have reasonable explanations for their military preparations. The colonists at Kepler Station were just protecting their families. The industrial workers at Titan 7 were just trying to survive. Yet, in both cases, human defensive actions resulted in the complete destruction of enemy forces. Chancellor Morden gestured for calm. The Council recognizes that humans may indeed believe their intentions are peaceful. The question before us is whether we can risk being wrong about those intentions. High Counselor Zethkai activated a holographic display showing the current political map of known space. Consider the strategic implications. 300 advanced. Vessels capable of independent operation across vast distances. If these ships establish positions throughout the galaxy, humanity would control more territory than any species in recorded history. But they're going to empty space? Jake protested. The Andromeda approach vector has been thoroughly surveyed. There are no inhabited systems in their target region. That we know of, corrected Dr. Nexith. The regions beyond our current survey range could contain unknown civilizations. If humans encounter inhabited worlds during their expansion, what happens then? The chamber fell silent for a moment as representatives considered this possibility. It was broken by a voice from the ethereal delegation, whose energy-based forms rarely participated in physical discussions. The historical pattern suggests humans respond to perceived threats with overwhelming force. If these exploration vessels encounter resistance during their expansion, the results could be catastrophic for any species they encounter. Captain Beth Warren, commander of the exploration vessel UES Pioneer, had been listening to the debate through the communication link. From Earth orbit? Her voice came through the chamber speakers with obvious frustration. Council members, I've been authorized to offer full access to any council observers who wish to inspect our vessels personally. You can see for yourselves that we're carrying families, not soldiers. Families, mused a Krillian representative. Captain, human military history shows that humans fight most ferociously when protecting their families. You are essentially telling us that your most advanced vessels will be crewed by humans in their most dangerous psychological state. Beth's voice carried a note of disbelief. You're afraid of us because we're bringing our children. Captain Warren, General Veltar explained, every major human military victory in our records occurred when humans were fighting to protect non-combatants. Kepler Station was defended by parents protecting their children. Titan 7 was held by workers protecting their families. The Vorthan fleet was destroyed by humans avenging attacks on medical personnel and wounded civilians. Dr. Alex Carter realized the depth of the misunderstanding. Council members, you're interpreting human protective instincts as aggressive preparation. When humans bring their families somewhere, it means they intend to build a peaceful, permanent home there. Or it means they are so confident in their military superiority that they believe no force in the galaxy can threaten their loved ones. Countered a Vorthan commander, Chancellor Morden called for a formal vote. The Council must decide whether to officially approve this human expansion, attempt to prevent it through diplomatic means, or take military action to protect the galaxy from what could be an unprecedented invasion. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives huddled with their advisors. Jake Sullivan watched the proceedings with growing alarm. Council members, surely you're not seriously considering military action against a peaceful exploration. Mission? Admiral, Morden replied gravely. If we are wrong about human intentions, and this fleet establishes military positions throughout the galaxy, no force would be capable of stopping future human expansion. This could be our only opportunity to prevent galactic conquest. But if you're wrong about our intentions and you attack peaceful colonists, Jake said quietly, you'll create exactly the kind of threat you're trying to prevent. A chill ran through the chamber as representatives realized the implications. If they attacked human families and the humans survived, the galaxy would face the full fury of humanity's protective rage. If they did nothing and the humans truly were planning conquest, they might be doomed anyway. Perhaps, suggested Dr. Nexith carefully, we should accept Captain Warren's offer to inspect the vessels personally. Send observers to verify the true nature of these ships before making any irreversible decisions. General Veltar nodded slowly. A small inspection team could confirm whether these vessels truly carry families and civilian supplies, or if this is an elaborate deception, Chancellor. Morden looked around the chamber, gauging the mood of the representatives. All in favor of sending an official inspection team to examine the human vessels before taking any other action? The vote was closer than Jake had hoped, but the motion carried. as representatives began filing out of the chamber to prepare for the inspection mission. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's future in the galactic community was hanging by a thread. One misinterpretation, one nervous observer, one piece of equipment that looked too military, and the galaxy might decide that the safest course was to eliminate the human threat. Before it could fully develop, the irony was not lost on him that humanity's greatest exploration mission might become the catalyst for their first truly galactic war. Commander Tony Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Pioneer, watching as the alien inspection shuttle approached their docking bay. The ship's corridors echoed with the sounds of children playing, families talking, and the general bustle of a community preparing for a long journey into the unknown. It was not the atmosphere anyone would expect aboard a military vessel preparing for invasion. Engineer Mary Collins was in the main cargo bay, checking the manifest one final time before the aliens arrived. Around her, colonist families were loading personal belongings, farming equipment, and construction materials. She could see the Henderson family teaching their 5-year-old daughter how to properly secure her toys for the long journey, while the Martinez family was discussing which books to bring for their children's education during the voyage. "Mary, are you nervous about the inspection?" asked Dr. Sarah Peterson, the mission's lead biologist. She was carrying a container of earth plant seeds that would be used to establish food production on their new colony world. "A little," Mary admitted. "I keep thinking about how our equipment must look to them. Industrial fabricators, defensive systems, automated construction units. To us, it's just what we need to build a new home. To them, it probably looks like invasion equipment." Pilot Steve Gordon was giving a tour to observer Kickstall, a tall insect-like alien from the Keth Collective, who had volunteered to inspect the human vessels. Steve was explaining the ship's navigation systems when they passed a group of teenage colonists who were practicing zero-gravity sports in one of the recreational areas. "These are your warriors?" Kickstall asked, his translator struggling with the concept as he watched 15-year-old Jenny Adams perform a graceful flip in the artificial gravity field. "Warriors?" Steve laughed. "No, they're just kids. Jenny wants to be a teacher when we establish the colony. Her friend Marcus over there is hoping to become an engineer like his mom." Kickstall's compound eyes focused on the teenagers with confusion. "But they are aboard your most advanced military vessels." "These aren't military vessels," Steve explained patiently. "These are colony ships. We're bringing entire families to establish permanent settlements. The kids will grow up on the new worlds we're exploring." The alien observer made rapid clicking sounds that his translator rendered as deep confusion. In Kickstall's experience, military expeditions involved soldiers, weapons, and strategic objectives. They did not involve children practicing sports and teenagers discussing their career aspirations. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering section, Mary Collins was showing observer Velanoth, a Krillian military specialist, through the industrial fabrication facilities. The alien's reptilian features showed obvious concern as she examined the sophisticated manufacturing equipment. "This facility can produce weapons," Velanoth stated, running her clawed hands over the fabrication units. "It can produce anything we need," Mary corrected. "Farming tools, construction equipment, medical devices, furniture, communications gear, and yes, defensive weapons if we encounter hostile wildlife or other threats. These fabricators are more advanced than anything in our military shipyards," Velanoth observed. Mary nodded proudly. "They have to be. We're going to places where the nearest supply depot will be millions of light years away. If we need something, we have to be able to make it ourselves. These machines can produce everything from computer components to children's toys." "Children's toys?" Velanoth's translator struggled with the concept. "Sure, watch this." Mary programmed the fabricator to produce a simple wooden doll. Within minutes, the machine had created a beautifully crafted toy complete with movable joints and painted features. "The Brennan family has a 3-year-old daughter. She needs toys during the journey and after we establish the colony." Velanoth stared at the toy in amazement. "Your most advanced military manufacturing equipment produces children's playthings?" Most advanced civilian manufacturing equipment produces whatever the colonists need, Mary corrected gently. Everything from toys to tools to emergency medical supplies. In the ship's residential areas, observer Zethral from the Etherian delegation was meeting with the colonist families themselves. The blue-skinned alien with 4 arms was particularly interested in speaking with the parents who had volunteered for the mission. "Why do you bring your offspring into unknown dangers?" Zethral asked the Williams family, who were traveling with their 2 young children. "Because we want them to grow up in a place where they can build something new," replied Janet Williams. "Earth is wonderful, but it's also crowded and limited. Out there, our kids will have unlimited opportunities to explore, create, and contribute to something bigger than themselves." Her husband David nodded. "We're not running from anything. We're running towards something. A chance to be pioneers, to build communities from the ground up, to give our children experiences that no one in human history has ever had." 8-year-old Tommy Williams looked up from his drawing tablet. "I want to see new stars and maybe find alien animals that could be my friends. Mom says there might be worlds with purple grass and rainbow trees." Zethral's silver eyes showed confusion. "You willingly take your children into unexplored space based on hopes and dreams?" "That's what humans do," Janet said simply. "We've always been explorers. Our ancestors crossed oceans in wooden boats to find new continents. Our grandparents traveled to Mars and the outer moons. Now it's our turn to go further." Observer Morthic from the Vorthan Empire was examining the ship's defensive systems with Commander Blake, the proud warrior species. Representative was clearly struggling to understand what he was seeing. "These weapon systems are designed for defense against unknown threats," Tony explained. "We don't know what kind of dangers we might encounter in unexplored space. Hostile wildlife, natural phenomena, or potentially aggressive unknown species. Yet they are more sophisticated than weapons carried by our battle cruisers," Morthic pointed out. "Because we can't retreat if something goes wrong," Tony said. "Military vessels can call for backup or return to base for repairs. We're going to be completely on our own for years, possibly decades. We need systems that can handle any situation we might face. But if you encounter inhabited worlds and the natives resist your presence?" Tony looked at the alien with genuine surprise. "Then we find somewhere else to settle. There are billions of uninhabited worlds in the target region. We're not looking to take anyone's home away from them. We want to build our own homes." As the inspection continued, Kixtel sent his initial report back to the Galactic Council. The human vessels contain families, children, teachers, farmers, and craftspeople. Their weapons are defensive, their manufacturing is civilian-oriented, and their goals appear to be genuinely focused on establishing peaceful settlements in uninhabited regions. But even as he transmitted this report, Kixtel couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. These humans seemed so genuinely peaceful, so focused on building rather than conquering, that it almost seemed too good to be true. In his experience, species capable of the military feats humans had demonstrated did not simply decide to become peaceful explorers overnight. The question that worried him most was what would happen if these peaceful families encountered resistance during their expansion, and whether the galaxy was prepared for humanity's response to threats against their children. Admiral Jake Sullivan stood before the Galactic Council once again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. The panic and fear that had filled the chamber just days before had been replaced by something Jake had never seen during his 5 years as human liaison: genuine curiosity and cautious respect. Observer Kixtel had submitted his full report, and the impact on the assembled representatives was remarkable. "Admiral Sullivan," High Counselor Zefkai began, his 4 arms gesturing toward the holographic displays showing images from inside the human vessels. "We owe humanity an apology. Our observers have confirmed that your exploration fleet carries families, children, teachers, farmers, and craftspeople. These are not invasion vessels but mobile communities designed for peaceful settlement." President Danny Walsh appeared on the main communication display from Earth. flanked by Dr. Nina Ross and Captain Luke Patterson. Council members, we appreciate your willingness to verify our intentions through direct inspection. We understand how our advanced vessels might have appeared threatening to outside observers. General Veltar, the Krillian commander who had been among the most vocal opponents of human expansion, stood up in her section. President Walsh, I must admit that we severely misjudged your people's motivations. Observer Velanoth reports that your manufacturing facilities are indeed capable of producing weapons, but she watched them create children's toys, farming equipment, and medical supplies. That's what they're designed for, Dr. Nina Ross explained. Our colonists will need everything from playground equipment for their children to advanced medical devices for emergency care. The fabrication systems have to be versatile enough to produce whatever a growing community might need. Observer Morthic from the Vorthan Empire had submitted perhaps the most detailed report. Council members, I spent considerable time examining human defensive systems and speaking with their security personnel. Commander Blake made it clear that their weapons are designed to protect against unknown threats, not to attack inhabited worlds. Chancellor Morden leaned forward with interest. Observer Morthic, what was your assessment of human intentions if they encounter inhabited worlds during their expansion? They will find somewhere else to settle, Morthic replied without hesitation. Commander Blake seemed genuinely surprised by the suggestion that humans might take territory by force. He stated that there are billions of uninhabited worlds in their target region, and they see no reason to displace existing populations. A chorus of surprised murmurs ran through the chamber. Dr. Alex Carter, who had been studying alien cultures for years, stood up from the human delegation. Council members, I think this situation reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. We've always been explorers and settlers, not conquerors. Throughout our history, humans have preferred to find empty lands to build new communities rather than take territory from others. But your military capabilities, interrupted a Keth representative, the destruction of the hegemony forces, the defeat of our battle fleets, surely these demonstrate aggressive intentions. Captain Luke Patterson answered from Earth. Those were defensive actions taken to protect our people. When someone attacks human families or threatens human communities, we respond with whatever force is necessary to stop the threat. But we don't seek out conflicts or try to conquer other species. Observer Kickstall clicked rapidly before his translator engaged. Council members, I believe humans fight like gardeners defending their gardens, not like predators hunting prey. They become dangerous only when someone threatens what they are trying to protect and nurture. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this perspective. It was Chancellor Morden who finally spoke. Observer Kickstall, you describe humans as gardeners. Please elaborate on this comparison. During my inspection, I watched human families preparing for their journey, parents teaching children about the worlds they would explore, teachers planning educational programs for the new colonies, engineers designing sustainable communities. They see the galaxy not as territory to conquer, but as a garden where they can plant new communities and watch them grow. High Counselor Zethkai activated a new holographic display showing the proposed human expansion routes. If we accept this gardener analogy, then human expansion could actually benefit the galaxy. They would establish new centers of civilization, increase trade opportunities, and potentially serve as a buffer against unknown threats from unexplored regions. More than that, added Dr. Alex Carter, human colonies have always been welcoming to other species. Our settlements on Mars, Europa, and the outer colonies all have significant alien populations who chose to live in human communities. General Veltar consulted her notes. Observer Velanoth confirms this. She spoke with several alien families living on human worlds who describe human communities as safe, prosperous, and remarkably tolerant of cultural differences. President Danny Walsh leaned forward on the display. Council members, we would be honored to include representatives from interested species in our exploration missions. This doesn't have to be purely a human endeavor. The chamber buzzed with excited conversations as representatives discussed this unexpected opportunity. Chancellor Morden called for order. President Walsh, are you formally inviting other species to participate in your expansion missions? Absolutely, Danny replied. Our goal is to explore and settle new regions of space, not to claim exclusive territory for humanity. If other species want to join us in building new communities among the stars, they would be welcome. Dr. Nina Ross added, our vessels are designed to support diverse populations. We already have life support systems capable of accommodating most known species, and our fabrication facilities can produce whatever equipment different species might need. Observer Zethral from the Etherian delegation had been quietly consulting with his government throughout the session. President Walsh, the Etherian Republic would be interested in sending colonial families to join your expansion missions. Our people have long dreamed of establishing settlements in the regions you plan to explore. The Krillian Empire would also like to participate, General Veltar announced. Our engineers would be valuable additions to colony construction efforts. One by one, representatives from different species began expressing interest in joining the human exploration missions. The Keth Collective wanted to send scientists to study unknown phenomena. The Vorthan Empire offered military specialists to help with security in unexplored regions. Even the proud ethereal beings expressed interest in establishing research outposts in the new territories. Admiral Jake Sullivan watched the proceedings with amazement. In less than a week, humanity had gone from being feared as potential galactic conquerors to being welcomed as partners in the largest peaceful expansion in galactic history. Chancellor Morden called for a formal vote. All in favor of officially approving and supporting the human exploration missions, with provisions for multi-species colonial participation? The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the UES Pioneer as it prepared to enter the first unexplored star system in the Andromeda approach vector. Around him, human and alien families were gathered at the windows, children of multiple species playing together while their parents discussed plans for the new colony they would build together. Captain Beth Warren's voice came over the ship's communication system. All families, prepare for arrival at Kepler 442b. Our new home awaits. As Jake watched the unknown star grow larger in the viewports, he reflected on how completely the galaxy's understanding of humanity had changed. They were no longer seen as terrifying warriors, but as the species crazy enough to load their children onto ships and fly off to build new worlds among unknown stars. And somehow, that had turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed.